Namaste. Good afternoon to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to say thank you to every one of you who turned up, our esteemed guests, to be part of this today. Welcome to India Blockchain Week. I hope you have a great week ahead. Before I start, I want to say that we have a booth at the back, and anyone who can guess the price of BTC at 4 p.m. today is going to pick up $50, USD $50, okay? The QR code is at the back, so make your best bet. I think it's 87,092 a minute ago when we checked. So every year, this platform becomes more important, not just because it's one of the premier Web3 conventions around the world, but because of India's place in the digital asset space. And what's happening globally as well as regionally has a huge impact on what happens in India and vice versa. India today sits at the intersection of talent, capital, desire for digital assets, as well as fast-changing regulatory collision costs with innovation. That's what makes this market truly inspiring to watch and a space that none of us can take for granted. Now, I spent my entire career, first as a lawyer, then a regulator, then as a business person in financial services. And I've worked across product development, I've worked across strategy, ops, and now, from a business perspective, launching products across multiple markets in Apac. So what I'm going to start with is basically give you a bird's eye view of what's happening in the region, right? There are other comparable markets, not in size, not in scale, but in terms of ambition, in terms of product density, in terms of regulations. So if you look at Singapore, Japan, Hong Kong, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, they're all at crucial intersections of what it means to be a digital asset adopter. And there's lessons to be learned from those. So I'm going to give you a rundown, and it's detail heavy, but I think it gives you a good color of what's happening in the rest of the region. So what's clear across the region, and right at the end of my presentation, I'll mention some astonishing statistics, right? But for now, I'll stay with the headlines. The global digital asset landscape is going through a fundamental shift, right? We've moved past experimentation. What we're seeing now is actual infrastructure and then product density being built on top of that. So number one, traditional asset managers, banks, even sovereign entities are starting to explore tokenized treasury, on-chain bonds, and stablecoin-based settlement infrastructure. Bitcoin is still king of the hill, but stablecoin settlement mechanisms have surged both at a treasury level between companies, right? That's where the highest uptake is. But also, if you look at merchant settlement, right? So payment services. When you go and make payment at a merchant, you used to make it with QR code, right? Now, when you did that, there was a T+2, there was a clearing and settlement function at the back end, there was a requirement for the paying entity to maintain a float, right? Because it takes time for the funds to actually clear and settle. Now, all of those archaic concepts are gone with stablecoins. Let's talk about remittance, right? Remittance usually works by, you have a sending entity from wherever the money is coming from, you have a receiving entity in India, and you have multiple entities along the chain, right? Each one of them introduces counterparty risk. Each one of them introduces liquidity constraints. Each one of them basically means you pay more and funds move a lot slower. Now that's gone with stablecoin settlements, right? Now real-world asset tokenization is no longer just a narrative. It's a real thing now. It's a means of freeing up liquidity in, highly illiquid asset classes. It's a means of giving you fractional ownership in asset classes that you couldn't get access to before. And blockchain-led representations of title and ownership are becoming the norm. In the UAE, for example, land titles are embedded directly on the blockchain, meaning you're not dealing with multiple levels of paperwork and finally a blockchain representation. It's actually a blockchain, a block on the chain. Now, these are trends, macro trends that are happening all over the world. And these are not things that we can ignore. So these bode well for India as digital asset adoption picks up in India as well. So let's look at your big players in the market, right? BlackRock, Fidelity, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, they've all increasingly expanded their crypto offerings. BlackRock, their spot Bitcoin ETF held 63 billion by mid-2025, and it's only been 1.5 years since ETFs launched. Fidelity has 2.8 billion. BlackRock's Bitcoin Ether ETFs are already bringing in more than 260 million in revenue annually to them. JP Morgan is now actively integrating digital assets into their payment and tokenization platforms. JPM coin, stablecoin is processing billions daily, right, in daily institutional flow and B2B settlements. What about regulations? So we've talked about business, we've talked about macro trends in terms of what companies are doing, what customer segments are doing. What about regulations? So let me give you some examples of how a well-defined legal framework actually supercharges digital asset adoption. Europe has MiCA, comprehensive regime. It started off as stablecoin regulatory framework, and now it basically regulates virtual asset service providers. Hong Kong has license exchanges. They've gone much further now. So now they've started licensing brokers who can plug into global order books, global liquidity, right, on an intra-group basis. Japan has authorized bank-backed stablecoins, but even on privately issued stablecoins, they're getting comfortable with distribution channels and putting per-user limits at a user wallet level. Singapore has strengthened custody, segregation, and technology risk requirements. Australia used to be in the same bucket as India, where it was an AML registration framework, but now it's moved past that and moved into a full licensing framework. In the US, as you guys know, the Genius Act has now provided a much clearer regulatory framework for regulating stablecoins. But then don't forget the commodities legislation, which has always been at play and allows the CFTC to regulate derivatives and regulate, for example, prediction markets. That's still continuing, right? Malaysia has updated the RMO guidelines to offer a clearer pathway for spot margin, audit off-ramps, hot-cold wallet architecture, etc. So, the list goes on and on, right? I can talk about South Korea, right? I can talk about Brazil. Brazil's interesting because Brazil, like India, actually took inspiration from India and launched the PIX. PIX is basically their version of UPI. But today, PIX is actually integrated into centralized exchanges. So it's the equivalent of taking UPI on a dynamic QR code basis, right, and integrating that straight into a CEX for crypto trading, right? So they've gone one step faster and further. Now, these are all examples, and these are not isolated developments, right? G20 and beyond, every major jurisdiction around the world has structurally moved away from a mere AML registration towards full licensing models. And that's what we at Binance are coping with. And that actually gives businesses much greater clarity because every single aspect of your business is clearly regulated, clearly licensed. Let's talk about Apac. So Apac, right, is the fastest growing digital asset market in the world. It surged 69% last year. And it's $2.36 trillion in 2025. That's the size of the market for APAC alone. It's the largest digital asset market in the world by far. It is the fastest growing region in the world for DeFi, DePIN, staking, stablecoins, any category you think of, it's the fastest growing region in the world. Outside of the US, private credit, tokenized treasury bills account for 90% of real-world asset tokenization. The bulk of that activity is happening either in the US or in APAC. Now, APAC has something else. It has regulatory harmonization. Even though it's not a common market by any stretch, when you look at the rules, when you look at the licensing frameworks for each of the countries in APAC, leaving India aside for a minute, they're harmonizing towards a relatively common standard, and that makes it much easier for businesses like us to operate at scale and offer the widest product suite to our consumers. What about India? So actually, India leads the index. India is the fastest growing digital asset market in the world 4 years in a row, right? And again, the interesting thing is that's across every single product category, spot, futures, DeFi, staking, right? You pick any category, the likelihood is that India's been a front runner of this market and for the last 4 years. 2/3 of your population is under 35 years old. If you take India and you divide it into 4 quadrants, you will realize, if you look at the data, that the adoption of digital assets is fairly uniform across all parts of the country. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4 cities. Again, unlike most of the market, actually unlike any other market, the adoption rates across Tier 1, 2, 3, 4 is relatively uniform. So there's no congregation in the metros, right? Even in the non-metro, semi-urban towns and cities in India, digital adoption is at a high. And India's broader digital economy actually lends to this. There's high mobile usage penetration, there's high internet penetration, there is high public infrastructure, a high level of public infrastructure on digital rails, and all of this actually supercharges digital asset adoption. So while regulators and law enforcement agencies are collaborating and working their way towards a licensing framework that makes sense, India is already a heavyweight in this aspect, right? And the adoption rates are already the highest in the world. So the consumers have already spoken and they've moved. The ship has sailed. right? Now it's time for laws and the regulatory frameworks to catch up. The other thing that India has is a thriving developer pool. So depending on the statistics you read, between 12 to 28% of global developers working on Web3 initiatives are actually from India or of Indian origin, but who have since moved out to work in other markets. If you look at the GitHub repositories for smart contracts and for the Rust codes, majority of them are Indian origin developers. So that's another massive factor, right, in India's long-term interest that cannot be ignored. And even with just a mere AML registration, India has incubated over 1,000 startups, up to 3.3 billion in terms of funding. And this isn't just about volume, right? We're also talking about quality. We see Indian teams contributing to layer 2 infrastructure, AI blockchain integrations, deep in networks, tokenization protocols, developer tooling, security auditing, and compliance automation. Karnataka, anchored by Bengaluru, accounts for roughly 1/3 of the country's Web3 ecosystem. So, who are we? Binance is on one hand the world's largest digital asset by trading volume across both spot and futures. We're 8 years old and we have 300 million customers globally. And the reason we've gotten to this position is because we're obsessed with the user, their experience in our platform, and we stay humble yet hardcore in our execution. We offer unmatched liquidity and pricing globally. We account for half of global trade in spot volumes and a much higher percentage for futures. To give you a sense of our scale, we are larger than, and in Q2, we processed 152 times the volume of our next 10 global competitors combined. In our 8 years of existence, we've processed 150 trillion USD in digital assets. Now, not only are we one of the largest players in the industry, we're actually one of the most compliant and licensed in the world. We have licenses in 22 jurisdictions, as per the heat map up there. More than 23% of our workforce are compliance professionals, and this is a 30% year-on-year growth. We have invested heavily in people, tools, systems, controls, and processes. We're fully aligned with India's regulatory framework. We are FIU registered, and we have transparent and ongoing engagements with all elements of the government. Now, because of our scale and because of the amount of AI tooling we use, we're able to do things for our customers that other exchanges will struggle to compete with. So we have returned, and I read some statistics to you, 4.3 billion USD in coin recovery, prevented close to 10 billion in fraud, recovered 230 million USD in fraud and scams globally, and in 2024 alone, we complied with 65,000 law enforcement requests from around the world, including India. In 2024, we delivered 100 training sessions and trained 15,000 law enforcement officers from around the world in terms of digital asset methodology and law enforcement techniques. Our focus is on security, which is non-negotiable, compliance, and financial inclusion, cheaper and quicker products and solutions, educational and institutional ecosystem. So let me take a moment to talk about security, right? Because for all users around the world, security is a non-negotiable. We apply real-time proof of reserves to 38 tokens on a one-to-one basis. We have a 1 billion set-aside fund, which is our good faith fund for any assets that are lost not as a result of users' fault, which is held in USDC on verifiable wallets. We do 24/7 market surveillance and mandatory self-trading prevention, and we hold SOC 2 Type 2, ISO 27001, 27701, and PCI DSS. These are global certifications attesting to security architecture of Binance. But don't form the view, please, that we are just a digital asset exchange and nothing more. We are an entire ecosystem of digital asset use cases. So we offer the ability for users to transact with merchants under Binance Pay. And I mentioned earlier that it's one of the fastest growing segments. We cleared 80 billion USD in annual volume across our thousands of merchants globally last year. We have fiat on and off ramps and in an increasing number of local currencies and P2P off-exchange mechanisms that allow our customers to move in and out of our exchange seamlessly. Binance Card, our card payment solution, is being rolled out to more jurisdictions globally. And we work with leading acquirers and issuers. We also work with card scheme operators around the world, the global ones. Binance Earn, our yield generation product, has 15 different categories of staking and yield generation globally. We have Binance Wallet, our DeFi solution, which is integrated to our CEX solution. So it gives you a CEX experience, but exposure to DeFi solutions. Interestingly, on DeFi, globally, there has been a resurgence. So TVL in DeFi protocols is up 20% in July and continues to increase in August. And this is clearly a result of changing regulatory frameworks in the US, for example, and the clarity it gives to stablecoins and liquid staking. Now, I want to talk for a minute about Binance Academy. So Binance Academy is a non-profit arm of our business where we produce content, education, information for our global users around the world free of charge. We have 60 million active users, and a fundamental pillar of our vision and mission is to educate users on two things. First, the technical layer, right? You'd be surprised how many people I still speak to who don't understand the ramifications of sending tokens to a wallet on the wrong chain, right? So one of our core objectives is to build understanding and knowledge on the technical layer before we get to the financial layer, right? The financial use cases that are built on top of that. Now, we are one of the world's largest open Web3 learning platforms, and a huge share of our Binance Academy users, our 60 million users globally, are young adults who want to understand how this actually works in practice. Now, within Binance Academy, we have 33 languages. We have actually a structured module program with 30 hours of dedicated Web3 modules. And we have instituted the Train the Trainer program. So over the next 1 to 2 years, we plan to train up to 1 million young adults around the world on blockchain technologies generally. And the hope is that they will then go on to train and inform and educate peers of their own. Community engagement. So at Binance, community is at the heart of everything we do. It's one of the core principles on which we were founded. Through our community engagements, we reached out to more than 6.5 million individuals in 2024 alone, through events such as this, through owned and sponsored events. So we've had 400 plus physical and 500 plus online events in 2024 alone. Now, what about our Indian community? Our mission is to drive the next wave of Web3 adoption. The next 1 billion users are not going to be your hardcore traders, right? They're going to be everyday people who want to see use cases and utility coming out of blockchain solutions. Now, we think the way to do this is a combination of education, dialogue, communication, and access to products that are safe for users to use. So we've started the Binance Blockchain Yatra in India as a step forward in achieving that goal. So we've had Binance Super Meets and Yatras in Vizag, Ahmedabad, Chennai, Mumbai, and now Bengaluru. Now, we believe these meetups will build stronger community engagement and bring voices from across the ecosystem to share insights, innovation, and growth objectives. Similarly, our initiative, Binance Case Challenge India, and the IIMM Bangalore team, I think, won season 1, right? So well done, Bangalore. Shows that engaging with our youth at a pivotal moment in their education and careers is actually vital to bringing new blood into the ecosystem. I leave for the UAE tonight to go and judge season 2, which I hope, again, a team from Bangalore will win. So within this context, let me address Binance's objectives for India, right, transparently and clearly. India is a strategic market. It's a crown jewel for Web3 adoption and growth. And we are committed to the long-term growth, safe, stable, and scalable growth of that industry in India. The end goal is very simple, ensuring that India's growing user base has access to products that are suitable for them, that give them the option for financial inclusion, and give them access to a much stabler and safer financial future. I want to finish off by talking about one of our key initiatives, which is Binance Charity, again, one of the arms of Binance. This is a charitable arm. Through this, we've provided scholarships to 67,670 individuals globally for higher learning opportunities. And in recent times, we've provided assistance to Hong Kong, Philippines, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, and India. With the exception of Hong Kong, all other circumstances revolved around assistance in response to natural disasters such as cyclones and floods. So looking ahead, what do we think is in store for India? What do we want out of this partnership in India? We think the direction for India and Apac is super clear, right? As I said before, the next phase of growth, the next 1 billion users. So we went from 0 to 100 million users in 5 years, the next 100 million in the next 2 years, and the last 100 million in the last 1 year, right? So that tells you the growth curve that we face as a business. Now, we think the next billion users will come online for real use cases. Tokenization, stable coins, corporate bonds, treasuries, supply chain assets. Now, I remember when I started, I said I'll share some astonishing numbers, right? So let's get into that just before I wrap up. AI and blockchain are converging. So AI's strength is analyzing large data sets and automating decisions, which complements blockchain's secure, transparent, and decentralized infrastructure. AI-related crypto projects make up 0.73% only of the 3.8 trillion global crypto market at present. We think this number will increase dramatically. AI-powered analytics are helping everyday users make smarter decisions about portfolio management. That's becoming the next wave of adoption. It's actually accelerating mass adoption because then it cuts out your active and passive fund managers. We use AI as a business to detect fraud. We've identified over 2,600 scammers and prevented 11.3 million losses so far in 2025, up to this point. Next one, stablecoins. So stablecoins in APAC are entering a regulated bank-backed phase. So for stablecoin projects to succeed, they must be redeemable at par. They must be redeemable instantly, so there's no delay in that process. And they must be backed by a reserve, right? What the math is it one-to-one? Is it in local currency? It's for every national regulator to determine. But we see these trends across APAC. Now, by facilitating crypto settlements, stablecoins are extending the reach of US monetary policy globally as well, because by and large, the majority of stablecoins that are used for global settlement are USD-backed stablecoins, right? And that matches what global trade is at present. We see this as an interesting facet of this to watch as well, as sovereign nations are grappling with how to deal with that issue. Stablecoins provide, very simply, near instant settlement at very low cost, cross-border. Right? It solves the problem that FX hasn't been able to solve, and global remittance flows haven't been able to solve for a long time. And the World Bank estimates 1.4 billion people remain unbanked. So that is a massive TAM for stablecoin projects around the world. Now, in fact, stablecoin transactions have tripled year on year, almost tripled year on year. In 2025, in the first 7 months, 16 trillion, right? Transactions in stablecoins. 13% of financial institutions already adopt stablecoin-based solutions. More than half of them say that if the critical mass of merchants and vendors who accept stablecoins increases, they will be on board as well. By 2030, it's expected that up to 10% of global cross-border payments will be settled in stablecoins, and that's a $4.2 trillion market. So, in conclusion, India's Web3 story is not grounded in hype. It's not grounded in hope. It's actually being defined by builders, students, developers, auditors, founders, researchers, practitioners, customers, who are working every day to improve this industry. India's contribution to the global pool of these people who are working to build this industry is outsized. Apac's momentum as a whole is not just coincidence. It's a product of very clear rules that talk about, okay, what is an exchange? We talk about order book, liquidity, matching engine, clearing, settlement, custody. Each of those components, that's infrastructure, right? There are very clear rules in almost every jurisdiction in APAC on how to regulate each of those components. And then on top of that, you have your product layer, right? And there are rules and authorizations around that as well. We hope that India will move in this direction in the years to come. Now, Binance's contribution is very straightforward. We build trusted infrastructure, we support education, we strengthen compliance, we protect users, and most importantly, we nurture and invest into the builders community. Thank you. I wish you all a very fruitful and engaging India Blockchain Week. I have a few minutes left, and I'm happy to take any questions from the audience if you have any.
Hi, SB Seker. It was nice to listen to your speech. I have a very simple question. So I'm a regular Binance user, and when I make a transaction, as in like when I purchase some asset, it is through P2P, right? So when I invest through P2P trading, there's always this fear that somehow I might not get the money invested, right? Because there's always this 99% or say 90% success rate of the seller. So I was also exploring UPI transactions for basically buying an asset. So I could figure out that UPI in Binance, that's something where there can be an improvement on. Just a feedback over there. So yeah, that's all. And also, I would like to connect with you post this session. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Rituraj, this side.
Sorry, I hope I caught your question correctly. Let me try and address your question, and you can keep me honest if I didn't. So basically, right, escrow models of payment settlement have been around for a long time, right? PayPal, Alipay, they all had that model, where there's a trusted third party that basically acts as an escrow agent, right? When the actual good or service goes across, payment settlement then occurs, right? And then you have a window on both sides to dispute quality, fitness of purpose, and stuff like that. So P2P is no different. What I would say is P2P is not something that is natural in the crypto space. It is a product and a concept of necessity in markets, emerging markets particularly, where there's no formal framework for fiat on-ramp, off-ramp, right? And so, we obviously watch the space and we are interested to see where the RBI will go with, whether it's an INR-based ARC or a CBDC or a Ruby-backed token. Each of them have unique pros and cons. I won't get into that today. Just to give an example, CBDCs basically pull liquidity away from the banking system, right? Which then causes credit cycle issues. So that aside, India will choose her own path and choose the method of allowing on-ramp, off-ramp that best suits their national interest. When that happens, when the day comes, my bet is that you will see P2P naturally sunset itself because it is inefficient, it is high friction, it gives customers anxiety, as you correctly pointed out. It's not something that we want, it's not something that customers usually want, it's not something that regulators want. Nobody wants it. It's a byproduct of necessity. So I think as stable licensing regimes kick in and they tell the market, well, how do you on and off ramp from a digital asset platform, then I think P2P will solve itself. That's been our experience in markets where P2P has been a starting point, but not necessarily the end point. And of course, I think you mentioned UPI. As I said earlier, any national payment grid that connects into your buy and sell on, take the stock market, for example, right? Just an example. Simplifies things for users. It actually makes, sort of the transaction record is end-to-end, right? So there's obviously a lot of upside to that for everybody involved. So we hope that will be the future in India as well. And Brazil's a great example. They started by observing India, launched their PIC system, which is actually UPI, and now have gone full cycle into integrating that to financial institutions for buy and sell. I'm almost at time. Any other questions? Maybe. Sure.
Thanks. Hi, Seker. Good connecting. In fact, I would love to connect. I work at Prosus PayU. In fact, we've been talking to Binance for a while. 2-3 things taking from his question. One, I think the regulator is looking for local presence. Is there a plan for that? Secondly, I think FIU registration may not be enough. So right now, the virtual digital assets bill essentially is in the works. Any movement, anything that you hear? So just on that, India plans, and I'd love to connect and in fact maybe take the conversation forward.
Sure. So I think for large global exchanges, and any large business that's looking to enter a new market, you're looking for certainty, legal certainty. I think a lot of Binance's decisions over the long run will be based on that as well. We're looking forward to a holistic licensing framework, which we've seen happen in every other market. Australia is a great example. They were on an AML model for a very, very long time. The consult process via their treasury took 2 years. But it's now at a point where, as I mentioned earlier, they are regulating or looking to regulate each of those components that goes into running a digital asset business. And then on top of that, you have your authorization specific for specific use cases. So if it's, payment, right, to merchants, it's a non-cash payment facility and so on. So you tick the box of the authorizations you need to make your business model work. So it's flexible, yet gives a lot of certainty. I think that's something we're looking forward to in India as well. If that answers your question. Sorry, sir.
Hi, Seker. I just listening your word speech. The Binance is, as per your speech, is very safest, right? So my question regarding the safeness of Binance. So my incident was like I have received one pop-up in Binance. I have some fair amount of asset in my Binance. I am user since 2018 maybe. I received pop-up like it is officially trading partner like 3 commas. So I have connected the trading API with 3 commas that time. Now after 2 days, all my asset around $2 million asset. Okay, so gone. So I just contacted Binance chat. So what this happened? The asset, whole asset is gone. So Binance chat said that this was happened to your API. The official partner Thikomas was hacked backend. So your asset is safe as per the chat. You have to raise the government's request, right, through the Codex platform. So I just reached to the cybercrime police to raise the request. They file complaint, and my issue is not solved till 2.5 years. So I try to contact everywhere in Binance, but my issue is still not solved. And as per last communication from the police is telling that the Binance is not responding for the court order. So what amount is exactly in the custody? What amount? To whom they should file the order? So this my issue is pending since 2.5 years from now.
Okay. I got about half of that. It sounds like it's been an ongoing customer service issue for 2.5 years around assets that are locked in place, but you can't get access to it, correct?
And recently I see that you have typed with FIU, Finance Intelligence of India, right? So I have also contacted them. So they said you can raise the via Codex. So in our region police, they said the Binance representative is not answering them.
Sorry, Binance?
Binance representative in the Codex platform, the support team or maybe the legal compliance team, they are not properly answering them.
Okay, so this is a specific case. I think what you're mentioning is there is an ongoing Codex/FIU look into a particular account status. I can't comment on an ongoing case, but I can definitely connect you after this with someone who can help you within Binance. Yeah, so I'm at time. I'm sorry I can't take any more questions on stage, but thank you so much for having me here, guys, today, and I wish you all a very pleasant India Blockchain Week. Thank you.